On the morning of my granddaughter's college graduation, I was straightening my late wife's pearl cufflinks in the bathroom mirror, thinking about the $40,000 check sitting in my breast pocket, the one I was about to hand her for her first year of law school. 8 minutes later, I was face down in the bed of my own pickup truck, a moving blanket thrown over my body, the smell of motor oil and cedar mulch filling my lungs. What in God's name are you doing? I tried to shout, but a calloused hand pressed hard against my mouth. It was Marcus, the young man who mowed my lawn every Saturday for the past 6 years, the boy I had watched grow from a skinny teenager into a married father of 2. "Mr. Coleman, please, I need you to stay down. Don't make a sound. I need you to hear something, and you are not going to like it. Trust me, sir," he whispered, and there was a shake in his voice I had never heard from him. Not even the summer his own father passed. Before I could push back, he closed the tailgate soft as a church door, and the world went dark and close around me. I lay there with my knees against my chest, my heart slamming so hard I could feel it in my teeth, furious, confused, 71 years old, and folded up like a question nobody had asked me yet. Then I heard the side gate creak open, and the sound of dress shoes crossing my gravel driveway, slow and unhurried, like a man who had nowhere else he needed to be. Through the gap where the tailgate met the bedliner, I saw a thin blade of morning light, and I heard a voice that turned my blood to ice water. It was my son, Reginald. "Is the old man still asleep upstairs?" he asked. "He took his pills with breakfast like always," a woman's voice answered, soft and practiced. That was Denise, his wife of 3 years, the one who called me Pop and brought me peach cobbler every Sunday like clockwork. "Good," Reginald said. "Because once Daddy signs over the house and the rental properties today, none of this is going to matter anymore." That was the moment I stopped being somebody's father and started being a witness to my own funeral, one that hadn't happened yet, but was being planned in my own driveway while I was hidden 10 feet away in a truck bed, breathing through a moving blanket that smelled like my late wife's quilts. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from tonight. Brother, sister, whoever you are out there listening with your coffee or your evening tea. And if you've ever found out the people closest to you were not who you thought they were, hit that subscribe button, because this is going to be a long road, and I want you walking it with me. My name is Walter Coleman. I am 71 years old, a retired master electrician out of Birmingham, Alabama. And until that Saturday morning, I believed I had raised a good man. I wired half the churches and half the schools on the east side of this city with these 2 hands. I buried my wife Loretta 4 years ago after 38 years of marriage, and I thought I had nothing left in this world to fear except being alone. I was wrong. There is a fear worse than being alone, and that is discovering you were never as safe as you thought, even surrounded by your own blood. The bed of that truck was hot already, even at 7 in the morning, Alabama heat rising up off the metal like an iron about to scorch a shirt. My hip, the one I had replaced 2 years back, throbbed against the wheel well. I wanted to kick that tailgate open and march into my own yard and demand answers. But Marcus's voice kept circling back in my head. "Trust me, sir. Marcus had mowed my lawn for free the whole month after Loretta died. Never said a word about it, just showed up every Saturday like it was nothing. He had driven me to dialysis appointments for old man Curtis down the street without anybody asking him to. A boy like that does not put his hands on an old man for no reason. So I forced my breathing slow, the way I used to when I was up on a ladder 40 feet in the air with a live wire in my hand, and I listened. The gate creaked again. A second set of footsteps, lighter, quicker. Is he gone? Did Marcus take him to get the donuts like we planned? That voice belonged to my granddaughter, Simone, Reginald's daughter, the one I had just written that law school check for, the one whose graduation cap I had watched fly into the Alabama sky 3 days earlier, with tears running down my face. My hands went numb. "He's gone," Reginald said. "We've got maybe 40 minutes before he's back." "Denise, did you switch out his heart pills like we talked about?" "Done," Denise said, easy as if she were reading off a grocery list. I swapped half the bottle with the blood pressure medication that makes him dizzy and confused. Combined with the heat today, by this afternoon, he won't know which way is up. By tonight, when Dr. Whitfield comes by for the wellness check Reginald scheduled, Daddy is going to look exactly like a man who can't take care of himself anymore. Whitfield. I knew that name. A young doctor who had set up shop 2 years back, always smiling, always shaking my hand a little too long at church functions. I had thought he was being neighborly. Reginald laughed, low and satisfied. A sound I remembered from when he was a boy who'd gotten away with something. Once Whitfield signs off, we file for emergency guardianship. Denise becomes his legal decision-maker by Friday. We move him into Magnolia Gardens by the weekend. Magnolia Gardens. That name hit me harder than any blow I had ever taken. I had wired half that building myself, 15 years back when it was being built. A memory care facility, the kind with locked doors on the outside, where families dropped off the inconvenient and the forgotten and visited twice a year if you were lucky. They were not planning to take care of me. They were planning to disappear me, alive. While spending the inheritance I had spent 50 years building one job, one house, one rental property at a time. I bit down on my own knuckle to keep from making a sound, tasted copper, felt my whole body shaking, not from fear anymore, but from a rage so pure it felt like current running straight through my chest. I had paid for Reginald's college. I co-signed his first business loan when the bank turned him down twice. I walked Denise's mother down the aisle at her own wedding when her daddy passed before he could do it. And Simone. Sweet Simone. The one I just watched cross that stage. Are you sure Simone's going to keep quiet about all this? Denise asked, and something in her voice had an edge of doubt to it, the first crack I'd heard. She's getting her cut. Reginald said flatly, 20,000 once the properties sell, enough to cover her first year of school without Daddy's little check. She knows which side her bread is buttered on. My own granddaughter. The law school check in my breast pocket suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. What about Marcus? Simone asked, and I heard real nervousness in her voice now, the first sound from any of them that sounded human. Marcus is loyal to Granddaddy. What if he says something? Marcus does what he's told, Reginald said. I told him to take Daddy to get breakfast and keep him out an hour. Paid him $300 cash to do it. Man's got 2 babies at home. He's not going to ask questions for $300. I almost laughed out loud in that truck bed, a bitter, silent laugh that hurt my ribs. They had bought Marcus to get me out of the house, never imagining the only thing that boy had actually done was hide me in plain sight and let me hear every word with my own 2 ears. They thought I was just an old man with a checkbook and a bad hip. They had forgotten that you do not survive 50 years of union work, 2 recessions, and burying your own wife without learning how to read a room and wait for your moment. The footsteps faded back toward the house, the side gate creaking shut, and silence dropped over that driveway, thick as August humidity. I lay there a long moment, staring up at the dark canvas of that moving blanket, feeling something in my chest that was not quite my heart breaking, because a heart cannot break twice in one lifetime, and mine had already done that the day I buried Loretta. This was something colder. This was clarity. The tailgate dropped open, and Marcus's face appeared above me, sweat beading on his forehead, eyes wide with something between terror and relief. Mr. Coleman, you all right? I am so sorry, sir. I didn't know how else to... I heard everything, son, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Marcus's whole body sagged. They offered me money to keep you out of the house this morning. I took it because I needed you to hear it from their own mouths, not from me. If I'd just told you, would you have believed your own boy was capable of this? No. God help me. No, I would not have. I would have told Marcus to mind his business and never cut my grass again. Marcus knew that. He had broken my heart on purpose to save my life. And there is a particular kind of love in that, the kind that does not ask to be thanked. Thank you, son, I said, and the word came out of me natural as breathing. I realized right there in that hot truck bed that blood is biology, but family is the man who tells you a hard truth when it costs him $300 and your trust to do it. I straightened up, my hips screaming, and reached for my back pocket where I still had that law school check, now feeling like evidence in a crime instead of a gift. The hurt in my chest was real, but underneath it, the rage had gone cold and hard as a bus bar, and a plan was already wiring itself together in my mind. They wanted a confused old man. I was going to give them the performance of my life, and then I was going to take every single thing back. Marcus, you got your phone on you? I asked. He nodded, fishing it out of his work pants. Not yours. I need you to drive me 2 streets over to my attorney's office, the one on 4th Street, before they realize I'm not coming back with donuts. Marcus's eyes went wide. Sir, that's Robert Ellison's office. You think he's even open on a Saturday? Robert's been my lawyer for 30 years. He'll open the door for me on Christmas morning if I call him right. I climbed out of that truck bed slow, every joint in my body protesting, and got into the passenger seat of Marcus's old Honda, the law school check still folded in my breast pocket like a stone. As we pulled away from my own house, I looked back at it once. The house I had built room by room with these hands, and I made myself a promise. I was not going to lose it. Not to my son's greed, not to my daughter-in-law's cold calculations, and not even to my granddaughter's 20,000 pieces of silver. Robert Ellison answered his own door in a golf shirt, looking like a man who had been about to spend his Saturday on a putting green, but the moment he saw my face, he knew this was not a social call. I told him everything, every word I had heard from that truck bed, and watched his expression go from confusion to something flinty and sharp, a look I had only seen on him once before. The year he sued a contractor who had stiffed half the black tradesmen on the east side and won every dollar back. Walter, this is attempted fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy, depending on how deep this doctor is in it, Robert said, already pulling files from a locked cabinet. Tell me about this doctor. Whitfield. I told him what I knew, and Robert made 2 phone calls right there in front of me, one to a private investigator he trusted, and one to a woman named Detective Adora Bryant, a friend from his church who worked elder fraud cases for the county. By the time we finished talking, it was nearly 9 in the morning, and I had been gone almost 2 hours. Walter, you need to think hard about how you want to play this, Robert said, leaning back in his chair. We can move on this quietly. File the paperwork, freeze the accounts, and let the law handle it cold. Or, he paused. Or, we can let them think they're winning a little while longer, and you can be the one standing there when it falls apart. I thought about Reginald's voice in that driveway, easy and satisfied, like a man closing a business deal instead of destroying his own father. I thought about Denise's calm explanation of swapped pills like she was discussing the weather. I thought about Simone's 20,000 pieces of silver. I want to be standing there, I told Robert. I built that family on my own 2 hands, the same way I built that house. I am not going to let them tell people I wandered off senile. I am going to walk back through that door today and give the performance of my entire life, and you are going to be ready to walk in right behind me when I give the signal. Robert smiled for the first time that morning. The same smile he used to get right before he cross-examined somebody who thought they had gotten away with something. Then let's get you wired up, old friend. Literally, since you're the electrician. He handed me a recording pen, small as a regular pen, the kind his investigator used in custody cases. Anything they say to you from this point forward gets caught. And Walter, take this. He pressed a folder into my hands. Copies of the original deed to my house, the rental property titles, and a power of attorney document I had signed years ago, naming Loretta's sister, my sister-in-law Geraldine, as backup decision-maker in case anything ever happened to me, a document Reginald did not even know existed because Loretta and I had set it up quietly the year after his first divorce, when we'd both started wondering about his judgment. Marcus drove me back to within a block of my house, and I walked the rest of the way on foot, slow and shuffling, practicing the roll before I even got through the door. I let my shoulders slump. I let my eyes go a little distant, unfocused, the way I had seen old man Curtis look in the months before his family finally got him real help. I walked up my own driveway like a stranger in my own life. Denise was the one who spotted me first through the kitchen window, and I watched her face do something remarkable. Fear flash across it, and then smooth over into warm concern so fast, I almost admired the skill of it. "Pop? Lord, where have you been?" "We've been worried sick," she said, rushing out onto the porch in her church clothes, her voice pitched loud enough for the neighbors to hear if they were listening, which I now understood was exactly the point. I went for a walk, I mumbled, letting my words drag a little, like a man fighting through fog. I think I got turned around by the Hendersons' place. I couldn't remember which house was mine for a minute there. It was a lie that physically pained me to tell, because I had lived on this street for 38 years, and could have found my way home blindfolded, with a broken leg. But Denise's eyes lit up like Christmas morning, and she turned to call into the house. "Reginald, Your daddy's back! And baby, he's not doing good!" He couldn't even find the house. Reginald appeared in the doorway, and for just a half second before he composed himself, I saw it. The flicker of triumph, quick and ugly, gone almost before it landed. "Daddy, come on in here and sit down," he said, taking my arm with a grip that was firm enough to steer, not gentle enough to actually be caring. He walked me to my own recliner like I was a piece of furniture being relocated, and Denise pressed a glass of orange juice into my hand, the same orange juice she swore had nothing extra in it that morning, though I noticed she watched me drink it with the focus of a woman checking off an item on a list. I brought the glass to my lips and let most of it run down into the dish towel I had tucked into my collar, claiming I was clumsy with my hands lately. Reginald sat across from me, and I watched my son look at me, his own father, the man who had taught him to ride a bicycle on this very street, the man who had sat up 3 nights straight in a hospital chair when Reginald had his appendix out at 9 years old, and I watched him calculate. Not worry, calculate. "Daddy, you know Dr. Whitfield is going to swing by this evening, just to check on you," he said, voice smooth as river stone. "Given everything going on, your memory and all, I think it might be smart if we talk about you having some extra help around the house. Maybe even Denise and me handling some of the finances for a while, just till you're feeling more like yourself." There it was. The opening move in broad daylight dressed up as love. "Whatever you think is best, son," I said, letting my voice waver, watching relief wash over his face plain as daylight. Simone came down the stairs around noon, dressed for a family lunch I hadn't been told about. And when she saw me sitting there in my recliner, with that vacant expression, something passed over her face that was not triumph like her father's. It was guilt, raw and young, and not yet fully buried under whatever justification they had fed her. "Hey, Granddaddy," she said quietly, kneeling by my chair. And for one moment her hand on mine felt real. Felt like the granddaughter who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during Sunday sermons. "You doing okay?" "I'm tired, baby girl," I said, and that part at least was true. She glanced toward the kitchen where her father and stepmother were talking in low voices, and I watched her swallow something down, watched 20 years of love wrestle against $20,000, and lose, at least for that moment. She stood and walked away, and something in me ached worse than any betrayal Reginald or Denise could manage, because a man expects disappointment from the world eventually, but he never stops hoping his grandchildren will be better than that. Dr. Whitfield arrived a little after 6, carrying a leather bag and a clipboard, greeting Reginald with the easy familiarity of men who had done business together before. He sat across from me and asked me simple questions: what year it was, who the president was, what I'd had for breakfast, and I answered each one, a half beat too slow, a little wrong, claiming I'd had pancakes when Denise had actually made eggs, mixing up the year by exactly 1, small enough mistakes to look real, large enough to look concerning. The whole time, the recording pen sat clipped inside my shirt pocket, catching every word. "I'm seeing some significant cognitive decline," Whitfield said to Reginald in the hallway, his voice pitched just low enough to seem private, but plenty loud enough for me to hear clear as a bell from the recliner. Given his age and the heart medication interactions we discussed, I think emergency guardianship proceedings are warranted. I can have the paperwork to you by Monday. "We appreciate you, Doctor," Reginald said, and I heard the click of a handshake, and somewhere underneath it the unmistakable rustle of an envelope changing hands. That envelope was the last piece I needed. I sat in that recliner after Whitfield left and let the house grow quiet around me. Denise in the kitchen humming to herself while she fixed dinner, Reginald on the back porch on his phone, voice low and pleased, probably calling whoever needed calling to set the next domino falling. I thought about Loretta, about the night we closed on this house with a loan nobody thought a black electrician and a school teacher could get approved for, about 38 years of Sunday dinners at the table 20 feet from where I now sat, pretending to be a man with no mind left. I am not a victim, I thought, watching the evening light slide across the floor. I had laid myself in 1987. I am the verdict, and the trial is almost over. I reached into my pocket where the recording pen sat warm against my chest, and I waited for Monday like a man waiting for a storm he had already built the shelter for. Monday morning came hot and still, the kind of Alabama heat that sits on a chest like a hand. Reginald had arranged for Whitfield to come back with the emergency guardianship documents, and he'd invited Denise's brother, a notary, to make it all official and quick, a tidy little ceremony of theft dressed up in paperwork. What none of them knew was that Robert Ellison and Detective Bryant were parked 2 houses down in an unmarked car, and that Geraldine, Loretta's sister, was sitting in my kitchen that morning, having driven in from Montgomery the night before, the original power of attorney documents in a folder on her lap. They sat me at my own dining table, the guardianship papers spread out, Whitfield hovering with his clipboard like a man overseeing a routine procedure rather than a robbery, Reginald's pen already uncapped and waiting in my hand. "Daddy." "This is just a formality," Reginald said, sliding the paper closer. "It just lets us help take care of things while you get your strength back." I looked at that paper a long moment, feeling every eye in that room on me, feeling the recording pen warm against my ribs. And then I set the pen down and looked my son dead in the eye, my voice coming out clear and steady as it had been for 71 years, no shake in it at all. "Reginald, I heard every word you and Denise said in my driveway Saturday morning. I heard about the pills. I heard about Magnolia Gardens. I heard you tell Simone she'd get her 20,000 pieces of silver." The room went silent enough to hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Reginald's face drained the color of old paper. "Daddy, I don't know what you think you—" "I have it recorded," I said, and reached up to set the small pen on the table between us, the little red light still blinking, plain as a confession. "Every word, son. And Geraldine here has the real power of attorney your mother and I set up 6 years ago, the one you didn't know existed, because we already had our doubts about you back then. And God help me, we were right." The front door opened before Reginald could find his voice, and Robert Ellison walked in, with Detective Bryant right behind him, badge already out, and Doctor. Whitfield's clipboard hit the floor like it had turned to lead in his hands. "Walter Coleman has full legal capacity, confirmed by his own physician as of last Thursday, a copy of which is in this folder," Robert said, laying his own papers down with the calm precision of a man who had been waiting all weekend to do exactly this. "Dr. Whitfield, the county would like to discuss the envelope you accepted from Reginald Coleman on Saturday evening, since elder fraud conspiracies tend to interest the medical board quite a bit." Detective Bryant was already reading Reginald his rights before Denise managed to get a single word out of her open mouth, and through the kitchen doorway I saw Simone standing frozen, tears already running, 20 years old. And watching her whole world come apart at a dining table she'd eaten breakfast at 1,000 times. I will not pretend the months that followed were simple, because justice rarely is. Reginald and Denise both took plea deals rather than risk trial, conspiracy and attempted elder fraud charges that cost Reginald his real estate license. And Denise, 3 years of probation, with Whitfield losing his medical license entirely once the county finished digging through how many other elderly patients he'd been quietly diagnosing for men, just like my son. I changed every lock in that house, moved every dollar into accounts only Geraldine and I controlled, and for a long while, I did not speak to my son at all, the silence sitting between us heavier than anything I have ever wired or built. Simone came to me 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday evening, standing on my porch in the rain without an umbrella, and she did not ask for forgiveness right away. She just sat down on the top step and cried, real tears, the kind that come from somewhere true, and told me her father had convinced her I was already starting to slip, that this was the kindest way, that the money would help her become exactly the kind of lawyer who could protect people like me. I sat down next to her in the rain, my hip aching the way it always does in wet weather, and I told her the same thing Marcus had taught me that Saturday morning in the bed of my own truck. Blood does not make family. The truth does. The willingness to tell somebody a hard thing, even when it costs you. She is in her 2nd year of law school now, paid for honestly, with her own work-study job and a scholarship she earned on her own merit, and she calls me every single Sunday at 7 o'clock without fail, not because she has to, but because she chooses to. As for Marcus, I gave that boy the deed to one of my rental properties outright, free and clear. Told him a man who breaks his own heart to save an old fool's life deserves more than $300 and a thank you. He cried in my kitchen when I handed him those papers, a grown man with 2 babies at home, and told me nobody outside his own daddy had ever done something like that for him. I told him he had it backward. He was the one who did something for me first. The morning he put me in the bed of my own truck and told me to trust him, and I have never once regretted that I did. These days I still sit on my porch most evenings, watching the sun go down over a street I have lived on for almost 40 years. A street I still own every brick and board of, and I think about how close I came to spending my last years locked behind the doors of Magnolia Gardens, while strangers spent what I spent a lifetime building. I think about how the people who are supposed to love you the most can sometimes be the ones holding the knife, and how the man you pay $300 a month to cut your grass can turn out to be the one who saves your whole life. If you have made it this far with me tonight, I want you to remember one thing before you go. Trust is not about who shares your blood. It is about who tells you the truth when the lie would be so much easier, and who stands in your driveway in the morning light, willing to risk everything you might think of them, just to make sure you get to see the truth with your own eyes. Sometimes the people who love us most aren't the ones who share our name, but the ones brave enough to risk our anger to protect us. A young man with a lawnmower taught an old electrician that real loyalty isn't loud, it's faithful. So look closer at who shows up quietly for you, and never forget to thank them while you still can. A small note for you. This story was crafted by AI for entertainment, woven with a heartfelt life lesson to share along the way.